Hi there, good morning. This is Charise, CEO of the 297 Group and your nonprofit coach. And today I am doing this live so that I can answer some of the questions that I have received. I have received questions all the time from nonprofits about how to get and keep funding. So what I did was founded the 297 Group to help organizations do just that. So we work with nonprofits of all sizes. We help nonprofits prepare themselves for getting funding and then how to keep funding once they get it. So I'm just going to answer some questions. If you are out there and you feel like you want to answer some questions or ask some questions, feel free to do so. We'll spend a little bit of time together. Let's see. The first question that I'm going to answer today that was submitted was, do you need a grant writer? I get this question all the time. Because when nonprofits get started, right, and they get their 501c3 letters, they think that funds will fall from the sky. And I know that's an exaggeration, but oftentimes there's this myth that would say that, get your 501c3 and then you'll get all the grants to do all the things that you want to do for your mission. It doesn't quite work that way. But before you go get a grant writer, you need to prepare yourself. And preparing yourself is not hiring somebody to write grants for you if you don't have a program, if you don't have a structure to your program, if your organization's board is not on board. So there's a lot of things that you have to do to build a foundation. Let's think about it this way. When you're starting a for-profit business, let's say it's a store, you would never just be like, okay, I'm going to rent a space and then all of a sudden the customers are going to come, the shelves are going to be lined, and I'll just make all the sales. Absolutely not. You would first expect we're going to see what we're going to sell. We're going to do our market research. We're going to make sure that we are positioned in a way that we are able to get funding or get sales, right? If you're doing a for-profit store, and then we're going to buy the product. We're going to stock the store. We're going to hire staff, and then we'll invite the public in to purchase and see our wares. As a nonprofit organization, it's the same thing. A little bit different, but I want you to remember that nonprofits are businesses just like for-profits. The only difference is your tax, your tax exemption, and the fact that the profits of the business does not go into any one person's pocket like the shareholders in a for-profit. It goes back to the community. It's reinvested into the organization to do the work of your mission. That doesn't mean nonprofit means broke. And I'll talk about that at another time. Nonprofit does not mean broke. It just means it's a different way of doing business. So back to the question. The question is, do I need a grant writer? I just got my 501c3. I'm just getting started. When do I hire a grant writer? You hire a grant writer when you are prepared to present something to a funder. I was a funder for over 2 decades, first with the United Way and then with local government, Orange County government here in Central Florida. And yeah, I was the one that wrote up the grant application. Nonprofits came to me, sought funding. But if there wasn't a plan in place, if they didn't have a program to fund, there was nothing to fund. So hiring a grant writer at that point would just be a waste of your funds. And so a lot of times organizations have this idea that if I just hire a grant writer to put everything together for me, that is not the job of a grant writer. So you may have approached a grant writer and they said, you're not ready yet. Go ahead, get ready, and come back to me, because their job is not to develop the program that you're going to deliver. Their job is not to develop your budget. Their job is not to say this is the organization. That's your job. So get and seek help to get those things together way before you even think about hiring a grant writer. And the truth is, in the early stages, you don't need a grant writer. You don't need a grant writer. You need to just be prepared and have documentation, and then seek after some of the smaller grants that will not take a lot of work that you'll be doing. We'll talk about that another time as well. I have a webinar that's coming up tomorrow, and I'll put the link in a post later in my bio. That's coming up tomorrow. That's going to talk all about from passion, your passion that you have, turn it into dollars. And that'll be a good place for you to join me. It's a free webinar, but it's really going to show you how you take your passion for your mission and turn it into the funding that you want. So again, just to piggyback on this question, you don't need a grant writer right away. You have to prepare. But how do you prepare? We'll talk about that more tomorrow and in future lives. Let me get to the next question that was asked. What is one of the most important things to prepare? Again, along the same lines of for grants. How do I prepare for grants? I do a whole training and a whole talk on how to prepare for grants, and I'll invite you to that. But I'll give you a couple of hints. One, you have to have your foundational documents. You need to make sure you have your 501c3 letter. Did you file your last 990? Are all of those things in place? Is your annual report with your state filed? Because funders are going to check that stuff, right? We want to make sure that you're legit before we give you funds. You have to make sure those foundational documents are in place, your policies and procedures that you need to have. But then the next biggest thing that funders will look for, putting aside all of that groundwork and that paperwork, this is a hint. They're looking to see that you're doing what you said that you're doing. So if you say that I'm mentoring students, they want to see that you're mentoring students. One of the first place a funder will absolutely go to check you out is your website. Do you have a website? Do you have a social media presence? I'm not asking you to be on social media all day long. I am not on social media all day long. But do you have the information that they're looking for so that they can see what you're doing? And then the next thing is, in order to see that, collecting data. Data is so important. In other words, how many backpacks did you give away? How many people attended your financial management program and graduated so now they have budgets? How many hours or how many sessions were you able to teach people so that their knowledge were increased? These are some of the topics I definitely will be talking about in future videos and in future classes that I host, my master classes and so forth. I invite you to continue to follow me and join me. I have a group on Facebook called Fund and Grow Your Nonprofit, because it is so important for you to understand these aspects of how you grow your business strong, so that when you do get funding, and I'm talking about funding like $50,000 and up, you are then able to keep that funding. Okay? We don't want nonprofits out here finally getting a grant. Maybe they hired a grant writer later on and they were able to put something together and then they can't deliver. So some of these things we'll be talking about. But again, just to reiterate, important things that you need to start preparing so that you can get grants. One is to make sure you have your foundational documents in place and everything is up to date. And then two, ensure that you can prove that you are actually doing the work. Making sure that you are collecting the data, that you're using the attendance sheets, that you can tell that when Charise came into the program, she had an F GPA, but because she's working with our tutoring program, she's now at a B. So you're tracking that stuff so that you can show the funder, this is what we're doing. The proof is in the pudding, right? So we want to make sure that they are knowing and understanding what you're doing. So let's go ahead and just summarize the last two questions that we talked about today, the questions that were submitted. And you can submit these questions at any time. Look for the link. There's a form that I have. If you want to join me and ask questions live, feel free to do so. But if you just want to submit those questions and then watch the replay later, you can always do that as well. And I'll do my best to answer all the questions that you may have based on my experience and my expertise. We'll have people that's joining on me and I'll let you know how you can tap into some of that information. Again, let's just summarize what we talked about today. Do you need a grant writer if you're a new organization? The answer is a resounding no. You're not even ready for a grant writer. You need to get yourself together, maybe work with a nonprofit coach, work to build your capacity, get your paperwork in order before a funder will even look at you. So you have the opportunity to apply for some of the smaller grants, the Walmart grants, the community grants that may not ask for a lot. But if you're trying to go for big money, and I say big money, but meaning like $50,000, $100,000, $200,000 and up, you need to have these things in place before you even think about getting a grant writer in on your staff, or else you'll be throwing away your money. if you don't have a structure to your organization. And then remember, start doing the work. Start doing the work. If you're a mentoring program, start mentoring and start documenting the hours that you're mentoring. How many sessions are you doing? What are they learning? So that you can then document to the funder in statistics, in numbers, and then you can also showcase it on your website. Showcase the work that you're doing on your social media so that when they're going to look for you, they find you. But not only do they find you doing the thing that you said you will do, that mission that you want to accomplish, and that goal that you want them to come alongside you and fund. Hopefully this was helpful. I'll continue to do these. Again, feel free to ask any questions that you may have. If you have questions, you want to comment on the replay later, feel free to do that. I'll be answering them as we go forward. And finally, again, my webinar is tomorrow. It's called From Passion to Funding, Passion to Dollars. We all want dollars for our nonprofits. How do we take the passion that we feel that allowed us to start the nonprofit in the first place, get these people on board, bring in volunteers, fund it out of our own pocket? How do we turn that passion into funding so that you don't have to continuously fund it out of your own pocket? Let's go ahead. We'll talk about that tomorrow at the webinar. Go ahead and register today if you have not done so. It's tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. I hope to see you there. Thanks for joining us today. This is Coach Charise with the 297 Group, where we help nonprofits get and keep funding. Take care.